"Then it's all over, I suppose," he said, looking as if he could have died on the spot with vexation and the intensity of his despair. But he was angry as well as disappointed. There was he, suffering so unspeakably, and there was I, the pitiless cause of it all, so utterly impenetrable to all the artillery of his looks and words, so calmly cold and proud. He could not but feel some resentment, and with singular bitterness he began, "I certainly did not expect this, Miss Murray. I might say something about your past conduct and the hopes you have led me to foster, but I forbear on condition—" "No conditions, Mr. Hatfield," said I, now truly indignant at his insolence. "Then let me beg it as a favour," he replied, lowering his voice at once, and taking a humbler tone. "Let me entreat that you will not mention this affair to any one whatever. If you will keep silence about it, there need be no unpleasantness on either side. Nothing, I mean, beyond what is quite unavoidable. For my own feelings I will endeavour to keep to myself, if I cannot annihilate them. I will try to forgive, if I cannot forget, the cause of my sufferings. I will not suppose, Miss Murray, that you know how deeply you have injured me. I would not have you aware of it, but if in addition to the injury you have already done me, pardon me, but whether innocently or not, you have done it, and if you add to it by giving publicity to this unfortunate affair, or naming it at all, you will find that I too can speak, and though you scorned my love, you will hardly scorn my—" He stopped, but he bit his bloodless lip and looked so terribly fierce that I was quite frightened. However, my pride upheld me still, and I answered disdainfully, "I do not know what motive you suppose I could have for naming it to any one, Mr. Hatfield, but if I were disposed to do so, you would not deter me by threats, and it is scarcely the part of a gentleman to attempt it." "Pardon me, Miss Murray," said he. "I have loved you so intensely, I do still adore you so deeply, that I would not willingly offend you, but though I never have loved, and never can love any woman as I have loved you, it is equally certain that I never was so ill-treated by any. On the contrary, I have always found your sex the kindest and most tender and obliging of God's creation till now. Think of the conceited fellow saying that! And the novelty and harshness of the lesson you have taught me to-day, and the bitterness of being disappointed in the only quarter on which the happiness of my life depended, must excuse any appearance of asperity. If my presence is disagreeable to you, Miss Murray," he said, for I was looking about me to show how little I cared for him, so he thought I was tired of him, I suppose. "If my presence is disagreeable to you, Miss Murray, you have only to promise me the favour I named, and I will relieve you at once. There are many ladies, some even in this parish, who would be delighted to accept what you have so scornfully trampled under your feet. They would be naturally inclined to hate one whose surpassing loveliness has so completely estranged my heart from them, and blinded me to their attractions. And a single hint of the truth from me to one of these would be sufficient to raise such a talk against you as would seriously injure your prospects, and diminish your chance of success with any other gentleman you or your mamma might design to entangle." "What do you mean, sir?" said I, ready to stamp with passion. "I mean that this affair from beginning to end appears to me like a case of arrant flirtation, to say the least of it, such a case as you would find it rather inconvenient to have blazoned through the world, especially with the additions and exaggerations of your female rivals, who would be too glad to publish the matter, if only I gave them a handle to it. But I promise you, on the faith of a gentleman, that no word or syllable that could tend to your prejudice shall ever escape my lips, provided you will—" "Well, well, I won't mention it," said I. "You may rely upon my silence, if that can afford you any consolation." "You promise it?" "Yes," I answered, for I wanted to get rid of him now. "Farewell, then," said he, in a most doleful, heart-sick tone, and with a look where pride vainly struggled against despair, he turned and went away, longing, no doubt, to get home, that he might shut himself up in his study and cry, if he doesn't burst into tears before he gets there. "But you have broken your promise already," said I, truly horrified at her perfidy. "Oh, it's only to you. I know you won't repeat it." "Certainly I shall not, but you say you are going to tell your sister, and she will tell your brothers when they come home, and Brown immediately, if you do not tell her yourself, and Brown will blazon it, or be the means of blazoning it, throughout the country." "No, indeed she won't. We shall not tell her at all, unless it be under the promise of the strictest secrecy." "But how can you expect her to keep her promises better than her more enlightened mistress?" "Well, well, she shan't hear it then," said Miss Murray, somewhat snappishly. "But you will tell your mamma, of course," pursued I, "and she will tell your papa." "Of course I shall tell mamma. That is the very thing that pleases me so much. I shall now be able to convince her how mistaken she was in her fears about me." "Oh, that's it, is it? I was wondering what it was that delighted you so much." "Yes, and another thing is that I've humbled Mr. Hatfield so charmingly, and another, why, you must allow me some share of female vanity. I don't pretend to be without that most essential attribute of our sex, and if you had seen poor Hatfield's intense eagerness in making his ardent declaration and his flattering proposal, and his agony of mind, that no effort of pride could conceal, on being refused, you would have allowed I had some cause to be gratified." "The greater his agony, I should think, the less your cause for gratification." "Oh, nonsense!" cried the young lady, shaking herself with vexation. "You either can't understand me or you won't. If I had not confidence in your magnanimity, I should think you envied me. But you will, perhaps, comprehend this cause of pleasure, which is as great as any, namely, that I am delighted with myself for my prudence, my self-command, my heartlessness, if you please. I was not a bit taken by surprise, not a bit confused or awkward or foolish. I just acted and spoke as I ought to have done, and was completely my own mistress throughout. And here was a man decidedly good-looking. Jane and Susan Green call him bewitchingly handsome. I suppose they're two of the ladies he pretends would be so glad to have him. But, however, he was certainly a very clever, witty, agreeable companion, not what you call clever, but just enough to make him entertaining, and a man one needn't be ashamed of anywhere, and would not soon grow tired of, and to confess the truth, I rather liked him, better even of late than Harry Meltham, and he evidently idolized me, and yet though he came upon me all alone and unprepared, I had the wisdom and the pride and the strength to refuse him, and so scornfully and coolly as I did, I have good reason to be proud of that. And are you equally proud of having told him that his having the wealth of Sir Hugh Meltham would make no difference to you, when that was not the case, and of having promised to tell no one of his misadventure, apparently without the slightest intention of keeping your promise? Of course, what else could I do? You would not have had me— But I see, Miss Grey, you're not in a good temper. Here's Matilda. I'll see what she and mamma have to say about it. She left me, offended at my want of sympathy, and thinking, no doubt, that I envied her. I did not. At least, I firmly believed I did not. I was sorry for her. I was amazed, disgusted at her heartless vanity. I wondered why so much beauty should be given to those who made so bad a use of it, and denied to some who would make it a benefit to both themselves and others. But God knows best, I concluded. There are, I suppose, some men as vain, as selfish, and as heartless as she is, and perhaps such women may be useful to punish them. End of chapter 14.